Howdy, with this video, I want to go over the final exam. Make sure you understand what I'm looking for there. I want to try and keep this short, so if I kind of start talking really quickly, it's because I'm aware that you got to write the final exam and you want to get on with it. But the material is up here on the content page. You're going to see the final exam in Word and in PDF. Most people can open either one of those. If you have trouble opening it, let me know. But you're going to see I want you to copy and paste some stuff from the final exam into your response. So that's why it's up there in both forms. You're going to see response number 11, which is also due on Thursday. I have it here and also have it under responses, and I'll have the YouTube video here just to kind of have it all in one place. But I also have it over here where it normally is. For the final exam, make sure you read through the directions carefully. There's 3 parts to the final exam. There's an essay question, there's some apostrophe exercises, and there's a works cited exercise. Apostrophes and the works cited entries seems to be where students are getting hung up a little bit. I want to make sure you've kind of mastered those skills before you move on. For the response, it's due by 10 a.m. on Thursday, December 17th. I'm going to literally get up and start grading these so I can get your grades in. Hopefully by the 18th, we'll see how that works. You can always submit the final exam early, of course, but don't be late with it, please. Or make sure you email me and say, hey, something happened and what can we work out? The odds are we might end up working with an incomplete. We'll see. But you should be completing the writing using your own, just particularly for part 1, the essay part, using your own ideas and quotes from the works we've read this semester. Don't use works we haven't read. Also, don't use research for part 1. This is the essay question, which we'll look at here in a second. This should just be your ideas and you using quotes for support. No research. If I catch you using research or turn it in, pops up some research, that's an automatic 0 just for that section, which is most of the final exam. Please don't do that. If you have questions about it, let me know. But again, for part 1, there should not be any research whatsoever, other than quotes from the works we've read for support. Here for number 3 here, I'm your audience. I'm the only person who's probably going to read this. You're going to assume your instructors that has read the works and wrote the notes for the study notes and the discussion board prompts or whatever. So don't repeat what I've said back to me word for word. Don't give me a plot summary of one of the short stories or something. I've read them. You don't have to tell me what happens in them, but you just want to get into your analysis, use quotes to support, and then move on and discuss those quotes, show us why they're there, and move on. So no plot summary. Make sure you're following the formatting guideline precisely for part 1, and we'll talk about that here in a second. And of course, you're going to quote from works for support in your essay portion in part 1. But you don't need a works cited page for that. There's already a works cited page component to this. In part 3. So the final exam's in 3 parts. The first one's the essay question. If you remember back from, I think it was YouTube video number 2, where we went over the philosophical questions for the course. I told you that's what's on the final exam. Here it is. But for the general format, the answer should be in a 4-paragraph format. Your first paragraph is just going to be your thesis statement and nothing else. There's no introduction paragraph to this essay response. There's no concluding paragraph to this essay response. So you're just going to start with the first paragraph. It's going to be that 1-sentence thesis statement. Then you're going to have 3 body paragraphs developing that thesis statement. Trying to get rid of the fluff and since the dawn of history, people have read literature kind of introduction. I don't need that. Get to your thesis statement, and then get straight to it in your body paragraph. But what you're going to do is you're going to relate one of those philosophical questions to 2 of the works we've read this semester, and then in a final paragraph, you're going to relate that philosophical question to yourself, giving some examples there. There's an example of a possible thesis statement. But basically, you're going to spend the first 2 body paragraphs talking about the literature, probably spend a paragraph in each one of your choices about which 2 works you're going to talk about. Then your 3rd body paragraph, which will be the 4th paragraph overall, we'll discuss your experience with that particular philosophical question. And again, you can see there should be no concluding paragraph. You might end it with one quick concluding sentence, but no concluding paragraph. So once you give that 1-sentence thesis statement, then you're going to spend your body paragraphs discussing either the role of determinism, and again, that's not just being determined to do something. It's the idea that we're determined by our race, our class, genetics, biology. I think I would keep giving examples. I'm not choosing to get old and lose my hair and grunt when I get out of a chair and stuff like that. It's just part of what happens in life, and it's not something I get to choose much about. I can choose how well I take care of myself, but I can't choose not to get old, right? But you're going to either talk about the role of determinism in the two works, or you can talk about the nature of truth in the two works. You know, who determines truth? What is truth? How much of truth can we know? Do we want to know? All those kind of big questions we've been asking about, particularly with the plays, but also with the short stories. But you're going to choose either one of those and develop your essay response based on either one of those ideas. Then in the third paragraph, you're going to relate those ideas to your own life. This kind of depends how some students don't like to write, too personally about themselves, and that's fine. You might end up talking about your educational experiences at Sullivan North or Northeast State here this semester. Most of you probably didn't choose to do online courses or going from in-class to online to in-class to online, back and forth, or whatever y'all did. But you can talk about whatever you're comfortable with there. But be sure you're relating, after you talk about the two works in this third body paragraph, the fourth paragraph of the essay, you're going to talk about your own life. And again, you want to kind of keep it focused in terms of analyzing how this idea works in your life. Don't go off on some political rant or give a bunch of religious testimony. That's not the question that's being asked, right? To see how that might work, let's look at a sample response. This is what it should look like, that part one. I'm going to make it kind of small here. But you get that first paragraph, just a one-sentence thesis statement. It's going to be probably a fairly long sentence, but just one sentence. Misspelled word there. The works Brownies in a Dollhouse unveil that sometimes, no matter what, life can trace back to the impact of determinism based on race, sex, and class. Determinism and then she's kind of telling us, here are the two works I'm going to talk about and kind of what I'm going to say. Then the last part of this thesis is going to say how I'm going to relate it to myself. Determinism for some college students, such as myself, can be life-changing when they are trying to be the first-generation college graduate. That is supported by a lot of research. First-generation students have a lot of struggles because they don't have people to guide them through the processes. But she's going to talk about brownies and spend a paragraph on brownies. Then she's going to spend a paragraph on a dollhouse. And notice she's using quotes to support, but make sure when you give a quote, make sure you justify why it's there. You want to introduce it. Then once you give the quote, you want to discuss that quote and show us how it supports what you're saying, right? Don't just give a quote and move on. Up here, she used a short quote. You can kind of see it right there. Then in the last paragraph, she's going to talk about herself, about being a first-generation college student, and also some other concerns or challenges she's facing. And that's it. 4 paragraphs, no introduction, no conclusion. The first paragraph is just that one-sentence thesis statement. Then a body paragraph on the first work she wants to talk about. Body paragraph on the second work she wants to talk about. Then relating these ideas to herself in some very specific ways. Be sure to give specific examples of your own life. So we can kind of make sure you give them good examples to support what you're saying in that last paragraph. That's the essay question. Then after that, you got part 2. These are just apostrophe exercises. You're going to copy and paste those behind this part 1, and then insert the apostrophes where they're supposed to be. This has been kind of a struggle for quite a few students in this class, and it's also a struggle for a lot of students in my other classes. I think I was probably at least a junior in college before I finally just sat down and read the rules for apostrophes. And of course, back then we hadn't handwrite most of our stuff. You can just put an apostrophe right above the S. Unfortunately, with computers, you can't do that anymore. So here you can do research on the internet. Obviously, look up the apostrophe rules, see where the apostrophes are supposed to go, and put them in accordingly there. The last one, I want you to create a works citus page. I want you to format this correctly. Make sure you have the hanging indents, the double spacing. Make sure you're in MLA format. And I want you to do a work from an anthology from our textbook. If you don't have the textbook, you'll have to go to Amazon and get some of the information for an anthology entry. Again, you can do research. The Purdue OWL has a good website showing you how to do these things. But some students are still struggling. Some of you are still kind of confused between APA and MLA. Make sure you're in MLA formatting. It's one of the goals for this class that you know how to do this. Then I want you to do the works citus page for entry for this website. Be sure to note that the author is given at the very bottom of the page. Kind of annoying, but That's where you'll find that information, so you can start your entry with the author's last name and first name, right? Then I want you to be able to cite a YouTube video. I think that's just one with me talking. But you want to do 3 works cited page entries. One reason I'm not asking you to spend time doing that on part 1, because you're going to be doing it right here in part 3. But make sure this is perfect. The idea is that you should be able to use resources, develop works cited page entries. That's what we've been practicing pretty much all semester, right? So make sure you do all 3 parts. Part 1 is obviously the bulk of it, 100 points. Apostrophe exercises 20 points. The works cited page formatting is 30 points. So 150 points overall for the final exam. If you have any questions about it, let me know. If you want to send me your thesis, feel free to do so in the body of an email. I'll be happy to. I'm not going to help you with the final exam, but I'm happy to take a look at the thesis statement to make sure you're on the right track if you're worried about that. But if you have any questions about it, be sure and let me know. I may not talk to you later. This may be the last video. It's kind of like, yay, or boo, or however you feel about it. But if you have any questions, be sure to let me know. Bye-bye.